The stars were quiet in the valley expanse. Most ships avoided this region of space. It was too close to Earth, the planet that other species called a death world. The gravity was too strong there. The weather was too violent. The creatures were too dangerous. And the humans who came from that terrible place were the most dangerous of all. Admiral Park Yuna stood on the bridge of the Terran flagship, resolute, and watched the stars through the main viewing screen. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had commanded fleets for 30 years. She had seen war and peace. She had buried friends and welcomed new soldiers. Nothing surprised her anymore. The Resolute was the largest ship in the 7th Terran Expeditionary Fleet. 15 other warships traveled with it through the darkness. They were on a routine patrol, checking the borders of human space and making sure nothing threatened the colonies. Commander Baek Do-yoon walked up beside his admiral. He was tall and broad, with the body of a soldier and the mind of a tactician. He had served under Park Yuna for 12 years. He trusted her completely. "Quiet night," he said. "Too quiet," Park Yuna replied. "I do not like quiet. It makes me nervous." At that moment, Lieutenant Shin Hanyul raised her hand from the communication station. She was young, only 26 years old, with quick fingers and sharp ears. She had been listening to the static of space when something caught her attention. "Admiral," she said, "I am picking up a signal. It is faint, but it is repeating." Park Yuna turned to face her. "What kind of signal?" "Emergency frequency. Universal distress code." Shin Hanyul pressed several buttons and the sound filled the bridge. It was a series of tones, rising and falling in a pattern that every species in the galaxy knew. It meant one thing only: help us. Can you find the source? Commander Baek asked, working on it. Shin Hanyul's fingers moved fast. Numbers and coordinates appeared on her screen. "Got it. The signal is coming from the Broken Nebula. About 6 hours away at maximum speed." Admiral Park Yuna walked closer to the screen. "The Broken Nebula. That is neutral territory. Who is sending the signal?" Shin Hanyul listened more carefully. The distress call had layers. Underneath, the universal code was a secondary transmission. She cleaned up the static and a voice emerged. It was high and musical, like water flowing over stones. "Malarai," she said. "The signal is from a Malarai vessel." The bridge went silent. Everyone knew about the Malarai. They were an aquatic species, beautiful and peaceful. They had soft blue skin and large dark eyes. They were known across the galaxy for their medical technology and their gentle nature. They did not fight wars. They did not carry weapons. They believed that all life was sacred. They also avoided humans completely. Like many species, they feared the Deathworlders from Earth. They thought humans were violent and unpredictable. They had never made contact with the Terran government. "What are they saying?" Park Yuna asked. Shin Hanyul translated the message. Her face grew pale as she listened. "They say their colony ship has been attacked. They say the Vrekan Dominion is taking their people. They are asking anyone who can hear them to help. They say they have children aboard." Commander Baek Do-hyun clenched his fists. The Vrekan Dominion was a predatory empire that treated weaker species as property. They captured aliens and forced them to work as slaves. The Galactic Council had condemned them many times, but no one was willing to fight them. "How many Malarai?" Park Yuna asked. "The ship is called the Singing Waters. Passenger list shows over 40,000. The Admiral closed her eyes for a moment. 40,000 innocent beings, families, children, being dragged away to a life of slavery. A new voice spoke from behind him. It was Observer Keyleth, the Galactic Council representative assigned to watch the human fleet. Keyleth was from a tall, insect-like species. He had traveled with the humans for 3 months and had written many reports about their behavior. Admiral Park, Keyleth said carefully, I must advise against responding to this signal. Why? The Malloy have no treaty with humanity. They are not your allies. The Vrekan Dominion is a recognized government with full council rights. If you interfere, it could be considered an act of aggression. The political consequences could be severe. Commander Beak turned to face the observer. They are calling for help. Are we supposed to ignore them? They are not your concern, Keyleth replied. This is a matter for civilized species to handle through proper channels. The word hung in the air. Civilized. It was what the other species called themselves. It was what they did not call humans. Admiral Park Yuna opened her eyes. Her voice was calm and steady. Lieutenant Shin, open a channel to the Mellorai vessel. Tell them help is coming. Admiral, Keyleth started. Observer Keyleth, I have heard your advice. I reject it. Park Yuna turned to her first officer. Commander Beak, set course for the Broken Nebula. Maximum speed. All ships. The commander smiled. Yes, Admiral. Alarms sounded across the fleet as ships changed direction. Engines roared to life. The 15 warships of the 7th Terran Expeditionary Fleet began moving as one toward the distress signal. Observer Keyleth stepped forward. The Council will protest this. There will be hearings. Your government will be pressured to withdraw you from command. Park Yuna did not look at him. She watched the stars streak past as her fleet accelerated. Perhaps. That is a problem for tomorrow. Today, someone is calling for help. Today, we answer. But why? Keyleth asked. He truly did not understand. The Mallorai fear you. They have refused all contact with your species. They think you are monsters. Why would you risk war for beings who hate you? The Admiral finally turned to face him. In her calm eyes, Keyleth saw something he could not identify. Something that made him feel very small. Because they need us, she said simply. Shin Haniel received an incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. She looked at the text and then at her Admiral. Ma'am, the Council is sending an official warning. They say any human intervention will be considered an act of hostility against the Dominion. Noted, Park Yuna said. Send a reply. What should I say? The Admiral thought for a moment. Tell them this. Someone asked for help. We are going. 6 hours. In 6 hours, they would reach the Broken Nebula. In 6 hours, they would face the Vrekan Dominion. In 6 hours, everything would change. Commander Beak Do-hyun stood beside his admiral as the fleet raced through space. He had served with her long enough to know what she was thinking. The Mellorai might reject our help, he said quietly. They might fear us more than the Vrekan. They might. Park Yuna agreed, and the Council might punish us for this. They might, and the Vrekan might kill us all. They might try. The Admiral's lips curved into a small smile. But they have never faced Deathworlders before. They have never seen what humans will do for strangers in need. They think we are monsters because we came from a harsh world. She looked out at the stars rushing past, toward the nebula where 40,000 innocent lives waited for someone to save them. They are about to learn that harsh worlds do not create monsters. They create protectors. The fleet flew on into the darkness, toward the screaming signal, toward the battle that would shock the galaxy. The Broken Nebula was a beautiful place. Purple and gold clouds of gas spread across millions of kilometers. New stars were being born inside those clouds. It should have been a peaceful sight, but when the Terran fleet dropped out of hyperspace, they did not see peace. They saw war. The Mellorai colony ship's singing waters drifted in the center of the nebula. It was a massive vessel, shaped like a teardrop, designed to carry families across the galaxy to new homes. Now it was broken. Holes had been torn in its hull. Fires burned in its lower sections. Atmosphere leaked from a dozen wounds like blood from a dying animal. 3 Vrekin warships circled the crippled vessel. They were ugly ships, covered in weapons and armor. Small transport craft moved between the warships and the singing waters. The Vrekin were already aboard, already taking prisoners. Admiral Park Yuna studied the tactical display on her screen. Her face showed no emotion, but her officers could see the tension in her shoulders. "Captain Han Ji-woo," she said into the communications system. "Report." On the strike cruiser Silent Thunder, Captain Han Ji-woo stood at his command station. He was a young captain, only 34, with fire in his blood and discipline in his mind. He had earned his command through skill and courage. "I see 3 enemy warships, Admiral. Torvin-class heavy cruisers. They outgun us individually, but we have numbers. The colony ship has lost main power. Life support is failing in several sections. I estimate we have 2 hours before the situation becomes critical. Can you get close enough to provide cover?" "Yes, Admiral. But they will see us coming." "Good. I want them to see us. Take the Silent Thunder and the destroyers Brave Wind and Morning Star. Move in close to the singing waters. Protect that ship." "Understood." Captain Han paused. "And the main fleet?" "We will circle around the nebula. When they commit to attacking you, we will strike their flank." Admiral Park's voice was steady. "You will be the bait, Captain. Can you hold?" Han Ji-woo smiled. "We can hold, Admiral." The Silent Thunder does not run. The communications channel closed. Commander Baek Do-hyun looked at his admiral. "That is a dangerous gambit. If the Vrekin focus on Han's group before we can get into position, then we will honor their sacrifice and destroy the Vrekin completely." Park Yuna's voice was cold. "But I know Han Ji-woo. He will hold." The 3 human ships accelerated toward the colony vessel. On the Vrekin flagship, alarms began to sound. Warlord Grathis stood in the center of his bridge and watched the approaching ships with amusement. He was a massive creature, covered in thick gray scales. His species had evolved as apex predators on their homeworld. They had never met anything they could not kill. "Human vessels," he said, and his officers heard the contempt in his voice. "So the Deathworlders have come to play heroes." His tactical officer studied the readings. 3 ships only, Warlord. 2 destroyers and a light cruiser. They are no threat to us. Of course they are not. Grathis watched the human ships approach. "Broadcast a warning. Tell them these Mellorai are now property of the Dominion. Any interference means war with our empire." The message went out. On the Silent Thunder, Captain Han Ji-woo received it and deleted it without reading. "Should we respond, Captain?" his communications officer asked. "No need. Our weapons will speak for us." Han Ji-woo pointed at the tactical display. "Take us between the colony ship and the nearest Vrekin cruiser. Put our body between them." The Silent Thunder moved into position. The 2 destroyers flanked it on either side. 3 small ships against 3 massive warships. The humans knew the odds. They did not care. Meanwhile, on the singing waters, chaos filled the corridors. Malarai civilians ran in every direction. Their soft blue skin was cut and burned. Their large dark eyes were filled with tears. Some carried children. Some carried the wounded. All of them were terrified. Elder Tyloan tried to maintain order. She was old for Malore, over 200 years. She had led this colony expedition with wisdom and hope. Now she led it through fire and death. "Move to the central compartments," she called out. Her voice was calm, even though her heart was racing. "Stay together. Help each other." A young Malarai swam up to her. Their species had evolved in water, and even on a ship they moved with fluid grace. "Elder, the lower sections are breached. The Vrekin have taken over 300 of us already. Tai Luan closed her eyes. 300. 300 of her people dragged away to slavery. And there were 40,000 more waiting for the same fate. What about the distress signal? She asked. We have received no response from the council. No other ships are coming. Then we will die here. Tai Luan felt the weight of those words. All their dreams of a new home, all their hopes for the future, ending in this broken nebula dot. Then another Melloray came swimming fast. Elder, ships are approaching. Reckon reinforcements? No, these ships are different. The computer says they are human. Tai Luan felt her blood go cold. Humans. Deathworlders. Creatures from a nightmare planet of poison and violence. Her people had avoided them for generations. The story said humans were monsters who killed without reason. What are they doing? She whispered. They are placing themselves between us and Avrekin. They are protecting us. Tai Luan could not understand. Humans were supposed to be savage killers. Why would they protect strangers? Why would they risk themselves for a species that had never spoken to them? Before she could think more about it, an explosion shook the ship. The Vrekin were cutting through another airlock. More boarding parties were coming. We need to move, Tai Luan said. Everyone follow me. We go to the main hall. They swam through corridors filled with smoke and floating debris. Somewhere ahead, Tai Luan could hear Vrekin voices. Harsh and cruel, laughing at the screams of their captives. Then a new sound cut through the chaos. An explosion from a different direction. A sharp control blast. They are breaching from the starboard airlock, someone cried. More enemies. Tai Luan gathered the civilians behind her. She had no weapons. Melloray did not believe in violence. All she could do was stand in front of her people and hope her death would be quick. The airlock door fell inward. Through the smoke came figures in heavy armor. They were bipedal, with thick limbs and covered bodies. They moved with a grace that seemed impossible for creatures their size. Humans. The Deathworlders had boarded the ship. Tai Luan raised her hands in surrender. Please, take me if you must. But spare the children. They are innocent. The lead human stopped. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the human reached up and removed its helmet. Tai Luan had never seen a human face before. She expected something monstrous. Instead, she saw a woman with dark eyes and short black hair. The woman's face was serious, but not cruel. There was something in her expression that Tai Luan had never expected to see. Kindness. I am Sergeant Quan Mira, the woman said. Her voice was strong but gentle. Terran Marine Corps, we received your distress signal. You came to help us? Tai Luan could not believe what she was hearing. Sergeant Quan Mira knelt down so her eyes were level with the elders. In the corridor behind her, other human soldiers took up defensive positions. They were watching the passages, guarding against Vrekin attackers. We heard you calling, Sergeant Quan said simply. We came to help. Tai Luan felt tears streaming from her eyes. All her life, she had been taught that humans were monsters. All her life, she had feared the Deathworlders. Now a Deathworlder was kneeling before her, offering protection instead of harm. There are more of us, Tai Luan said. Thousands more. The Vrekin are taking them. Sergeant Quan stood up. Her face became hard. Her eyes became steel. Then we will stop them. Stay behind us, Elder. My team will protect you. Why? Tai Luan asked. She had to know. Why would you risk your lives for us? We have avoided your people for generations. We feared you. Sergeant Quan looked back at her. In the distance, weapons fire began to echo through the corridors. The human soldiers tensed, ready for battle. Because you needed us, the sergeant said. That is enough. She put her helmet back on and raised her weapon. Marines, we have civilians to protect. Move out. The humans advanced into the ship, toward the sounds of fighting, toward the Vrekin who had come to enslave a peaceful people. Behind them, Elder Taluan watched in wonder. Everything she thought she knew about Deathworlders was wrong. Everything was about to change. Nobody knew how the broadcast started. Later, investigators would discover that Observer Keyleth had activated his recording equipment at the beginning of the battle. The Galactic Council wanted a record of human aggression. They wanted proof that Deathworlders were dangerous and needed to be controlled. Instead, they got something very different that the broadcast spread across the communication networks like fire through dry grass. Within minutes, it reached the major worlds. Within an hour, it had spread to every corner of civilized space. Billions of beings on hundreds of planets stopped what they were doing and watched. They saw the Terran fleet placing itself between the Vrekin warships and the crippled colony vessel. They saw human ships taking damage rather than abandoning position. They watched rescue shuttles fly unarmed through combat zones to save strangers. On the planet Valoria, a council of elders gathered around a viewing screen. They were an ancient species, one of the first to achieve space travel. They had seen many things in their long history. The humans are outnumbered and outgunned, one elder observed. Standard tactical doctrine says they should retreat and seek reinforcements. They are not retreating, another replied. They are holding position to protect the Melarai evacuation. That makes no sense. The Melarai have never allied with humanity. They have actively avoided contact with Earth for generations. The eldest of them all, a being over 1,000 years old, leaned forward. That is precisely the point. The humans are not doing this for political advantage. They are doing it because someone needed help. On the industrial world of Kreth, factory workers paused their machines to watch the broadcast. They saw Sergeant Quan Mira take a plasma bolt to protect a Malori child. They saw her get up and keep fighting. They saw her lead civilians to safety through corridors filled with fire. The Deathworlders are insane, one worker said. She should be dead. Why is she still moving? Look at her face, another replied. She is in pain. But she does not stop. She does not leave anyone behind. Why? The Melarai are not her people. They are not even her allies. No one had an answer. It did not make sense by the rules they understood. On the homeworld of the Vrekin Dominion, military commanders watched the battle with growing frustration. Warlord Grathis had called for reinforcements. A fleet of 15 additional warships was racing toward the broken nebula. The humans are fools, one commander declared. They waste their strength protecting weaklings. When our reinforcements arrive, we will crush them. But another commander was silent. He watched the tactical data with careful eyes. They have taken severe damage, he said quietly. The flagship has lost its main weapons. 2 destroyers are crippled. They could retreat and save themselves. But they do not retreat. No, they continue fighting. They continue protecting. The commander shook his head. I do not understand these creatures. They fight like they have already accepted death. They fight like the only thing that matters is saving strangers. Back in the broken nebula, the battle reached its crisis point. Admiral Park Yuna stood on the bridge of the Resolute as another explosion rocked the ship. The main tactical display showed enemy reinforcements dropping out of hyperspace. 15 Vrekin warships, fresh and undamaged. Admiral, we cannot fight them all, Commander Beek Dohyun said. His voice was steady, but she could see the truth in his eyes. We have accomplished our mission. Over 30,000 Melarai have been evacuated. We should withdraw before we lose more ships. Park Yuna looked at the display. 10,000 Melarai still remained on the Singing Waters. 10,000 lives that would be taken by the Vrekin if she ordered a retreat. How many rescue shuttles can we still deploy? 4, Admiral. But with the enemy reinforcements, they will never survive the approach. Then, we protect them. Park Yuna's voice was iron. All ships, new formation. Form a shield around the colony vessel. Nothing gets through. Admiral, that will expose our flanks to the reinforcement fleet. I know. She looked at her first officer. Send a message to the crew. Tell them what we are doing and why. Tell them I am proud of them. Tell them that today, we show the galaxy what humanity truly is. The message went out to every ship in the fleet. It was simple and clear. We stay and we protect, whatever the cost. Not a single crew member objected. The Terran ships repositioned, forming a living barrier around the singing waters. The 4 remaining rescue shuttles launched. Ensign Yoon Timan was piloting one of them. Even though his previous shuttle had been damaged and he had wounds he had not reported. Rescue 1. You are entering hostile fire zone. Control warned. I know, Yoon Timan replied. There are still children on that ship. I am going. On the Silent Thunder, Captain Han Ji-woo watched his engine power drop to 0. A lucky Vrecken shot had destroyed his main drives. The ship was now drifting, unable to move, unable to escape. We have lost engines, his engineer reported. We are dead in space. Weapons? Still functional. Han Ji-woo smiled. It was a fierce, determined smile. Then we keep fighting. Assign targeting to the enemy reinforcements. We are not moving, but we can still shoot. The crippled Silent Thunder continued to fire from its static position. It had become a fortress, refusing to surrender. Across the galaxy, the Watchers held their breath. This was not what they expected from Deathworlders. This was not savage violence. This was not brutal destruction. This was sacrifice. On the singing waters, medic Cho Yoonji had not stopped working since the battle began. She had treated over 200 wounded Melorai. She had improvised medicines, invented treatments, and performed surgeries she had never trained for. Now she was crying. A Melorai child had died in her arms. Despite everything she tried, the injuries were too severe. The little one had looked up at her with dark, trusting eyes, and then simply stopped breathing. I am sorry, Cho Yoonji whispered. I am so sorry. I could not save her. Elder Tylun was beside her. The elder took the child from the human's arms and closed the small eyes. You tried. You gave everything you had. That is all anyone can do. It is not enough. It will never be enough. It is more than we ever expected. Tylun looked at the human medic with new understanding. You are crying for one of our children. A stranger. A member of a species that has feared and avoided you. Why do you care so much? Cho Yoonji wiped her eyes and looked at the other wounded waiting for her attention. Because she was a child. Because she was scared. Because she needed help and I was here. She took a deep breath and stood up. I cannot stop. There are more who need me. She went back to work, still crying, still healing. At that moment, something unprecedented happened. New signals appeared at the edge of the broken nebula. Not Vrecken ships. Not human reinforcements, civilian vessels. Medical frigates. Relief ships. 100 of them, emerging from hyperspace in a ragged formation. They came from a dozen different species. Some had traveled for hours at maximum speed. Others had simply been nearby and changed course when they saw the broadcast. This is the Valorian Medical Authority, a transmission announced. We are responding to the emergency. We are here to help with evacuation. This is the Kreth Workers Collective. We have 3 transport ships. Tell us where to go. This is the Communion of Elders. We bring supplies and sanctuary. Admiral Park Yuna stared at the display. Her voice was barely a whisper. They came. Commander Baek Do-hyun was equally stunned. The galaxy is responding. They are coming to help. The Vrekin reinforcement fleet hesitated. Attacking the human warships was one thing. Attacking 100 civilian vessels from a dozen neutral species was something else entirely. The political consequences would be catastrophic. On the Vrekin flagship, Warlord Grathis watched his victory slip away. This is impossible. Why would they come? Why would they interfere? This has nothing to do with them. His tactical officer had no answer. In space between the fleets, rescue shuttles continued their work. Medical frigates approached the colony ship. Supply vessels unloaded desperately needed equipment. And across the galaxy, billions of viewers watched the Deathworlders of Earth stand their ground, wounded and burning, refusing to abandon the strangers they had come to save. The galaxy had always known what humans could destroy. Now they were learning what humans would protect. The battle began in the darkness between stars. Warlord Grathis watched the human ships move closer to the crippled colony vessel. He had expected them to attack with wild fury. That was what everyone said about Deathworlders. They were savage, violent, uncontrolled. They would charge into battle without thinking, but the humans did not attack. Instead, they placed themselves between the Singing Waters and his warships. They formed a protective wall of metal and weapons. They did not fire first. What are they doing? Grathis growled. His tactical officer was confused. They appear to be defending, Warlord. They are prioritizing the colony ship over offensive action. Defending? Grathis laughed. The sound was harsh and cruel. What kind of warriors defend? Attack them. Show them what the Dominion does to those who interfere with our harvest. The 3 Vrekin cruisers opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked across the void toward the human vessels. The Silent Thunder and its escorts did not run. They took the hits on their forward shields and held position. On the bridge of the Silent Thunder, Captain Han Ji-woo grabbed his console as the ship shook from impact. Warning lights flashed across every station. Shields at 70%, his tactical officer reported. They are concentrating fire on us. As expected. Return fire, but focus on their weapon systems. I want them unable to shoot, not destroyed. Sir? We are not here to kill them. Captain Han's voice was firm. We are here to save the Mularai. Every second we hold, more civilians escape. Focus on the mission. The Silent Thunder's weapons spoke. Precise shots struck the Vrekin ships, targeting their guns and engines. It was a defensive strategy designed to cripple rather than kill. The Vrekin had never seen anything like it. Meanwhile, small rescue shuttles launched from the Terran fleet. Ensign Yoon Taemin piloted the lead shuttle, a young man with steady hands and a brave heart. His shuttle had no weapons. It was designed only to carry people to safety. Rescue 1, you are entering the combat zone, Control warned him. Enemy fire is heavy. I can see that, Yoon Taemin replied. He watched plasma bolts streak past his viewport. Any one of them could destroy his tiny ship. But there are wounded on that colony vessel. They need medical attention now. The area is too dangerous. Then I will fly faster. Yoon Taemin pushed his engines to maximum. The shuttle shot forward, dodging through the crossfire toward the Singing Waters. Behind him, 3 more rescue shuttles followed. On the Vrekin flagship, Grathis saw the small ships approaching. What odds? Unarmed shuttles, Warlord. They are heading for the colony ship. Destroy them. Weapons fire chased the rescue shuttles. Yoon Taemin threw his ship into a series of desperate maneuvers. Left, right, up, down. The shuttle screamed with stress. One bolt passed so close it scorched his hull, but he did not turn back. He reached the Singing Waters and docked at an emergency airlock. Behind him, 2 other shuttles made it through. One was hit and began spinning, crippled but not destroyed. The pilot inside fought to regain control. Inside the colony ship, the battle was even more intense. Sergeant Quan Mira led her Marines through corridors filled with smoke and floating debris. They had found the first group of Malarai captives and freed them. Now they were hunting more. "Contact ahead," one of her soldiers reported. "Wreck patrol, 6 hostiles. Civilians?" "Yes, 20 Malarai being escorted toward the transport bay." Quan Mira made her decision in an instant. "We take them. Fast and clean. Protect the civilians at all costs." The Marines moved like shadows. They had trained for years on Earth, in conditions that would kill most species. High gravity, extreme temperatures, dangerous predators. They had learned to fight in every environment. The Vrecken did not see them coming. The first 3 fell before they knew they were under attack. The other 3 turned in open fire. Plasma bolts filled the corridor. One Marine was hit in the shoulder and went down. Quan Mira did not stop. She charged forward, putting herself between the Vrecken guns and the Malarai captives. A plasma bolt struck her armor. The impact felt like being hit by a ground vehicle. She kept moving. Her rifle spoke twice. 2 more Vrecken fell. The last one tried to grab a Malari child as a shield. Before he could complete the motion, Quan Mira was on him. She broke his arm with 1 strike and knocked him unconscious with the second. The Malarai stared at her with wide eyes. They had just watched a human fight through pain and fire to save them. They could not understand it. "Is anyone hurt?" Quan Mira asked. Her voice was calm, despite the burn mark on her armor. One young Malarai stepped forward. "You are injured." "I am fine." "Are any of you hurt?" "No, we are. We are unharmed." The young Malarai looked at the fallen Vrecken. "You could have killed them all instantly. Why did you take a wound to protect us?" Quan Mira checked her rifle and reloaded. "Because that is what we do. Now follow me. We are getting you to the rescue shuttles." At the main medical station of the colony ship, Medic Cho Yunji worked frantically. She was the fleet's chief medical officer, a woman who had studied every known species in the galaxy. But she had never treated a Malarai patient before. "Their blood chemistry is completely different from ours," she muttered. "Their bones are softer. Their organs are in different positions." She looked at the wounded Malari child on her examination table. The little one had been burned by a plasma fire. She was unconscious and barely breathing. "Can you help her?" Elder Tai Luan asked. The elder had refused to leave, staying to help Cho Yunji with the wounded. "I do not know." Cho Yunji felt tears forming in her eyes. "I do not have the right medicines. I do not have the right equipment. I am trained for human patients. Then she will die?" Cho Yunji looked at the child. So small, so innocent. Caught in a war she did not understand, burned by weapons she had never seen. "No," the medic said. Her voice became hard with determination. "No, she will not die. Not today." She began improvising. Human medicine could not heal Malarai directly, but the principles were the same. Stop the bleeding. Reduce the inflammation. Support the body while it heals itself. She adapted, adjusted, invented solutions from nothing. For 3 hours, she worked without rest. The child's vital signs stabilized, then improved. Then the little Malarai opened her eyes. "You saved her," Tai Luan whispered. Cho Yunji fell back against the wall, exhausted. Tears streamed down her face. "She's not the only one who needs help. There are so many wounded. I cannot save them all. You are trying." Tai Luan took the human's hand in her own. The elder had never touched a Deathworlder before. The human's hand was warm and strong. That is more than we ever expected. Outside the colony ship, the battle continued. The silent thunder had lost its forward shields. Its hull was scarred with blast marks. But Captain Han Ji-woo held his position. "Sir, we cannot take much more of this," his first officer warned. "We do not need to take more. Look." Han Ji-woo pointed at the tactical display. On the far side of the nebula, new signals appeared. The rest of the Terran fleet, led by Admiral Park Yuna, was completing its flanking maneuver. "All ships, this is Admiral Park." The communication system crackled. "Attack pattern Delta. Hit them now." 12 Terran warships emerged from the nebula clouds and struck the Wrecken from behind. The enemy cruisers, focused on the Silent Thunder, were caught completely off guard. Explosions bloomed across their hulls. Warlord Gratis roared in fury. "Turn the ships. Face the new threat." But it was too late. The humans had trapped them between two forces. And still, the Terran ships were not trying to destroy them. They were targeting weapons and engines, crippling rather than killing. On the Wrecken flagship, an officer approached his warlord. "Warlord, why do they not destroy us?" "They have the advantage. They could finish us." Grathis stared at the human ships with growing confusion. "I do not know. This is not how predators fight. This is not how warriors fight." He was beginning to understand something terrible. Something that would shake his understanding of the galaxy. The humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to save. The Wrecken fleet withdrew. They had no choice. When Warlord Grathis ordered a retreat, his officers did not argue. 100 civilian vessels from neutral species surrounded the battle zone. Every action was being broadcast across the galaxy. If the Dominion attacked now, they would face not just the humans, but the unified anger of dozens of worlds. "This is not over," Grathis snarled as his flagship turned away. "The Dominion will remember this insult. We will have our revenge." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. Something had changed in this nebula. The galaxy had seen something it could not forget. The image of human ships taking damage to protect strangers would spread further than any Wrecken threat dot in the silence left behind. The rescue operation continued. Every Melori survivor was evacuated from the Singing Waters. Every wounded being was treated. Every child was counted and protected. The final count was 43,712 Melori saved. Only 400 had been captured by the Wrecken before the humans arrived. Only 86 had died from their injuries, despite the best efforts of human and allied medics. Against those numbers stood the cost. 3 Terran ships destroyed completely. 8 more severely damaged. 47 human sailors dead. Over 200 wounded. They had paid in blood for strangers who had feared them. On the medical deck of the Resolute, Admiral Park Yuna lay in a recovery bed. A Wrecken weapon had struck the bridge during the final phase of the battle. She had been thrown across the room, her ribs broken, her arm shattered. She had refused evacuation until every Melori was safe. Now she drifted in and out of consciousness. When she opened her eyes, she saw Elder Tyluan standing beside her bed. "You should be resting," Park Yuna said weakly. "So should you." Tyluan's voice was soft. "But I needed to see you. I needed to speak to you before the Council makes its announcements." "The Council?" "They have called an emergency session. The entire galaxy is watching what happens next." Tyluan reached out and gently touched the Admiral's uninjured hand. "I wanted to thank you, personally, before anything else happens." Park Yuna tried to smile, but pain made it difficult. "You do not need to thank me. We did what was right. That is exactly why I must thank you." Tyluan's dark eyes glistened with tears. "My people have avoided humanity for generations. We believed the stories about Deathworlders. We thought you were monsters. We were wrong." She reached into her robe and withdrew a small pendant. It was made of crystal that seemed to hold light within it. "This is the tear of gratitude. Among my people, it is the highest honor we can bestow. It is given only to those who sacrifice for others without hope of reward. In all our history, we have given it only 17 times. She placed the pendant around Park Yuna's neck. You are the 18th. You and your people. The Admiral touched the crystal with her good hand. It was warm against her skin. Thank you, Elder, but I cannot accept this alone. This belongs to everyone who fought today. I know. Tai Luan smiled through her tears. That is why you deserve it. Far away, in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, representatives from every major species gathered. The chamber was enormous, designed to hold thousands of delegates. Today, every seat was filled at the center of the chamber. A massive holographic display showed the recorded footage from the battle. The delegates watched in silence as the story unfolded again. Human ships taking damage. Human soldiers protecting civilians. Human medics crying as they worked to save alien children. When the footage ended, the Vrekan ambassador stood to speak. This assembly must condemn the aggressive actions of the human government, he declared. They interfered in a lawful Dominion operation. They attacked our vessels without provocation. This is a clear violation of galactic law. A murmur ran through the chamber. Then the Valorian representative rose. With respect to the Dominion ambassador, we see the footage differently. We see the humans responding to a universal distress call. We see them protecting civilians from harm. We see them sacrificing their own lives for beings who had never asked for their help. More representatives stood to speak. One by one, they added their voices. The Kreth Workers Collective stands with the humans. We witnessed their actions. They fought not for conquest, but for mercy. The Communion of Elders has studied the Deathworlders for centuries. We always focused on what they could destroy. We never considered what they might protect. Today, our understanding has changed. The Mellorai diaspora formally requests alliance with the Terran government. We misjudged humanity. We will not make that mistake again. The voices grew louder. Species that had avoided Earth for generations now spoke in support of the Deathworlders. The tide had turned. Finally, the council speaker called for a vote. The proposal was simple: full diplomatic recognition of humanity, with a permanent seat on the council. The votes were counted. The result was overwhelming. Only the Vrekan Dominion and 2 of their client states voted against. Humanity had earned their place among the stars, back in the Broken Nebula. Sergeant Quan Mira walked through the corridors of the Singing Waters one final time. The ship would never fly again, but it had become a symbol. It would be preserved as a monument to what had happened here. She stopped at a viewing port and looked out at the stars. Her body ached from the battle. She had burns and bruises that would take weeks to heal. But she was alive, and so were 40,000 beings who had called for help. Sergeant? She turned to see a young Mellorai approaching. It was the child she had protected in the corridor, the one she had shielded with her own body. Hello, little one, Quan Myra said. Are you looking for your family? I found them. They are safe. The child hesitated, then reached out and took the sergeant's hand. I wanted to thank you. You got hurt saving me. Quan Myra knelt down so she was eye level with the child. That is my job. Protecting people. But why? You did not know me. You did not know any of us. Quan Myra smiled. It was a gentle smile, full of warmth. Because you needed help. Because you were scared. Because protecting people is what humans do. It is what we have always done. Even strangers? Especially strangers. Quan Myra squeezed the child's hand gently. When someone is in danger, it does not matter if they are human or Mellorai or any other species. They are just someone who needs help. And we will always come when someone calls. The child looked at her with those large, dark eyes. You are not like the story said. You are not monsters. No, Quanmyra agreed. We are not monsters. Our world made us strong. It made us tough. It made us survivors. But it also taught us something else. It taught us to look after each other, to never leave anyone behind, to answer when someone calls for help. She stood up and looked out at the stars one more time. The galaxy thought our planet made us into killers. They were afraid of what we could destroy, but they never understood the truth. She turned back to the child and smiled. Harsh worlds do not create monsters. They create protectors, and we will always protect those who need us. The child smiled back, no longer afraid. Outside, the rescue ships began their journey home. The Terran fleet, battered but unbroken, formed up to escort them. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the Deathworlders of Earth, and for the first time, they understood. Humanity had come from a world that tried to kill them every day. It had made them strong enough to survive anything, but it had also taught them the value of life. It had taught them to protect the weak, to answer calls for help, to sacrifice themselves for strangers. The galaxy had always feared what Deathworlders could destroy. Now they knew what Deathworlders would give their lives to save, and that changed everything.